Good afternoon. My name is Michael Jabry Pickett, and I am the Newsroom Editor-in-Chief at Qatar Foundation. As we reach the one-year mark in the countdown to the first FIFA World Cup to be held in the Middle East, I'd like to welcome you all to a special edition of Qatar Foundation's Education City Speaker Series, which is in collaboration with FIFA and the Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy. In 364 days, the opening game of the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022 will kick off. The anticipation is building not just in Qatar, but for millions of fans around the world, many of whom will be in Doha this time next year to cheer on their teams. And here in Qatar, the FIFA Arab Cup 2021, which starts next week, will whet the appetite for what lies ahead in just 12 months. But the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022 is about much more than what happens during 4 weeks of football. It's about creating a sporting and social legacy for Qatar and the Middle East. It's the perfect time to bring together some of the key figures in the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022 to discuss not only the preparations for the tournament, but also the promise that lies beyond it. Before introducing our speakers, for those of you who haven't joined one of these events before, the Education City Speaker Series is a Qatar Foundation platform that provides people with an opportunity to learn from, hear from, and interact with experts and thought leaders on a range of topics that are shaping our world. Over the next 40 minutes, we'll be marking the one-year countdown to the 2022 World Cup through the insights of our guest speakers before taking your questions in a 20-minute question and answer session. Please use the Q&A section of this webinar to post your questions, and we'll do our best to get to as many as possible. It's now my pleasure to welcome our panel of speakers. Gianni Infantino, President of FIFA, the governing body for world football. His Excellency Hassan Al Thawadi, Secretary General of the Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy, which is responsible for delivering the stadium's infrastructure and legacy of FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022. And Machaille Hassan Al Naimi, President of Community Development at Qatar Foundation, a key supporter of Qatar's World Cup preparations and legacy. Three speakers, we are delighted to have them here with us today. Your Excellency, as someone who has become one of the faces of Qatar's World Cup, I'd like to start with you. 1 year out, and with the Arab Cup about to take place here, how prepared is Qatar to cater for the hundreds of thousands of fans who will descend on the country next year? And what can they expect from what, for many, will be their first taste of the Middle East? I think you're muted, Your Excellency. There you go.
Better?
Yes, thank you.
All right, first challenge to overcome is technology. So moving on from that, I mean, I think, look, when we first bid for the World Cup, one of the most driving passions that we had was that this was, a sport that brings everybody together, but more importantly, it's a platform that if you go any corner of the world, people love the sport. People are able to communicate. You if you meet anybody that doesn't speak the same language, you can communicate just through throwing out names like Ronaldo, Messi, Neymar, and so on. And so it has an unprecedented ability to bring people together, to create the human interaction and break down stereotypes. So for no doubts, hosting the first Arab World Cup, the first Middle Eastern World Cup, has a very profound impact and a great opportunity for us to really showcase the culture, the heritage, and the hospitality of this part of the world. So anybody who comes to this part of the world for the first time, I think they'll be in for a very wonderful surprise in terms of being able to engage and interact with the people of the Middle East. And I think for the people of the Middle East as well, to interact with people from the outside world as well, and engage with fans, on what's essentially our common passion for sports. Needless to say, Qatar, as you pointed out earlier, we've been preparing for the last 10 years. I think it's the last stretch. The infrastructure, I'm very proud to say, is done. Our stadiums are complete. And in terms of operational preparations, the Arab Cup is going to be our biggest test right now. And working very closely with FIFA in terms of, performing our final dress rehearsal, if you will. And we'll be ready for the World Cup, as I said, in 2022 to showcase what the Middle East, the best that the Middle East and the Arab world and Qatar has to offer.
Excellent. So staying with you for a moment, as well as marking Qatar out as a global sporting hub, how do you hope this tournament will help to position the country as a cultural destination?
Well, I mean, always when you look at major sporting events, the biggest beneficiary in terms of industries from the major sporting events, apart from construction, is usually tourism and tourism and culture. That's the one that at least has the biggest spike or impact, at the very least, right after the tournament itself. And you've seen that in Sydney, you've seen that in South Africa, in particular, Russia's benefited extremely from it. So there's no doubts, I think, setting out or at least showcasing the world and for the for many people from different walks of life and different parts of the world visiting Qatar for the first time and visiting the Middle East in itself, I think, is a gateway towards educating them and, more importantly, piquing the interest of people to come. There's no doubts, of course, that then moves on towards promoting and showcasing a lot of the industries and a lot of the initiatives that the state of Qatar is also very well known for. What the World Cup will do will magnify these initiatives. I mean, if we're looking at, for example, cultural initiatives, there's no doubts we have some of the best museums in the world, some of the best cultural events in the world. If we look at Qatar Foundation, some of the initiatives that Qatar Foundation themselves are doing as well in Education City in itself, what this will do is shed a spot or shine a spotlight on a lot of these other initiatives. So people either looking from the outside, or even more importantly, people who actually have the opportunity to interact on the ground, I think we'll be able to go back with not only what we'd like to be, a profound and long-lasting experience, but be able to speak about it as well and continue promoting it.
Very good. Mr. Infantino, compared to previous World Cups, how does Qatar stand out 1 year from the tournament in terms of its readiness to host one of the greatest sporting shows on earth? And what has impressed you most about the country's preparedness?
Well, first of all, hello everybody, and obviously it's a great pleasure to be here with you. As you see, I can enjoy, I'm going a bit for the sun of Qatar, of Doha, as I'm here right now, as opposed to probably the rain or snow that we have in Europe. But this is already a great news and will be fantastic for next year. So thanks very much for the invitation to be part of this conference. Well, yesterday we had, as it was said before, the 1 year to go event. So now it's actually 364. No, actually now it's 363 days and 21 hour and 49 minutes to go, or something like this. Hassan, is it right? More or less, a few seconds. And I've been involved now in sports organizations, organizing some of the, of course, biggest football events in the last few decades. And I've never seen a country which is so ready to host a World Cup, to host such a big event as Qatar. 1 year before kickoff, all venues are ready. I can tell you of some host countries in other parts of the world, I will not name them, but who like many years after the event has taken place, the stadiums are still not ready. So imagine here 1 year before, the stadiums are ready. 5 of them have already been tested. Another one will be part of the Arab Cup, of the FIFA Arab Cup, which kicks off now. The stadium of the final, Lusail, is incredibly beautiful. I've been there last week with Hassan as well, and with President Bolsonaro from Brazil. It is amazing. It is incredible. So everything is ready in Qatar in terms of infrastructure for football, which means we can focus in this 1 year from now until the World Cup to make sure that every fan that is coming to Qatar will live an incredible experience, something unbelievable, a welcoming part of the world, a great country, a great region, actually, because we're speaking about Qatar, but at the same time we speak about the whole Gulf the Middle East, the Arab world, to discover a new culture, and we can focus on this experience of the people which will come here, and those who might not come but watch it on TV, and also for them it will be a great experience. And don't forget that the World Cup is watched by more than half of the world population, by around 4 billion people, and a couple of million will be coming here. So it will be fantastic, and I say we because we are all part of the same team. We are ready to welcome the world for a unique experience. It will not be only the best World Cup ever, but it will be a truly unique World Cup.
Very good, thank you. Mrs. Al Naimi, if I could ask you about Qatar Foundation's role in supporting Qatar's hosting of the World Cup. In the year between now and the tournament beginning, what are the key things your organization will be doing to support the event? And once it's over, what will QF's role in helping to ensure the tournament, including the Education City Stadium, has a genuine legacy?
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here, and hearing Mr. Infantino himself and His Excellency Hassan speak about the number of days, seconds left to the iconic event that's going to be taking place has really given me goosebumps. It's something that I think as a Qatari and everybody else here is really excited to see this come to play. And Qatar Foundation ourselves, we've played a very unique role in supporting the World Cup, and that has been from sustainability, research, community development, all of which are our core mission areas as a foundation. I see our role as kind of twofold. One, obviously, is supporting the Supreme Committee in achieving their objectives and ensuring that we are very much aligned to those objectives, but also leveraging the ecosystem that we have. I always say we are a city within a city. So we are a living, breathing city of thousands of students, faculty, researchers, and many buildings. And we're very lucky, I think, in saying that we have one of the iconic 8 World Cup stadiums situated in the heart of our city. And as they mentioned, you have the Arab Cup taking place very soon. We will be having 5 matches taking place in our stadium. Next year, there will be 8 games also taking place in our stadium. So that in of itself creates kind of the buzz that's going to be happening in our city. In addition to the fact that we will be hosting the International Media Broadcasting Center right across the street, again in our city, bringing in hundreds of reporters and journalists to talk and showcase again this very iconic sporting event that, as Mr. Infantino himself said, billions of people tune into, and again hundreds and thousands of those visitors will be walking through our city. In terms of the programs, again, there's a lot that we're doing, not only from a programmatic perspective, from educational research. We have a group of researchers looking into different, multidisciplinary approach, looking at things that relate or are working towards the World Cup. A lot of those have kind of come into policy. Some of them have launched in terms of actual businesses. We also have our own initiatives, things like just talking about legacy as well. It's a part, we have volunteers, and we're going to need thousands of volunteers just in our city, but also this is something that the Supreme Committee are working on for the rest of the country. We have been working very closely with them to make sure that, His Excellency Hassan talked about it being an Arab Cup, the first time this is happening in the Arab region. We wanted to make sure that all these volunteers who are coming in are learning, for example, a few things in the Arabic language, about our history, about our culture. So using, again, all of our ecosystem and our centers to help kind of work in developing that volunteering program and making sure that it's a legacy for beyond the World Cup, and that's something that stays with us. Also, again, as Qatar, we've talked a lot about it being a very sustainable World Cup. So again, we have over 14 different schools, and we've launched a program called Rasikh, and that will be a K through 12 sustainable curriculum that, again, kind of embedding these values in our youth for generations to come. And there are so many more, programs that we have happening in the city. But I think the biggest one is, as you mentioned, our stadium and the legacy behind it. And I think if I, maybe just go off topic for a second, you have any country when they're kind of bidding for a sporting event, they always look at the legacy component of it. And I think for Qatar, it's embedded in the fact that it's called, the Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy. And for us as a stadium, we really wanted to make sure that this isn't this, beast of an asset sitting in our city that doesn't get used after it, but making sure that we're reaching out to our community members, hearing from them, understanding what do they want to see in the stadium post factum. And something that's very exciting is 2 of our schools will be housed in the stadium, and that is a very big legacy for us and for those students who will be studying in that. But then also having a lot of the sporting let's say entities who will relocate and have their homes also in the stadium. And the idea is for it to be a hub for sport development and getting entities to kind of have that transfer of knowledge between them.
Excellent. If I could just stay with you for a moment. So QF has just entered into a partnership with FIFA Foundation. Can you tell us about this partnership? What's it's intended to achieve and what it will mean for people in Qatar and for the region?
Yes, so this is a very exciting new partnership. And again, I have to kind of go back in history to kind of explain it. But one of the things that we've been, it's been a really big focus for us, has been accessibility and inclusivity for people of different abilities. And so in 2018, we launched a program called the Qatar Foundation Ability Friendly Program, where we have delivered over 6,000 hours of sporting opportunities for people with different abilities. And so it started off with football and swimming. And the idea is that as a city, we want to make sure that we are inclusive and that we're allowing people from all walks of life to enjoy our opportunities and programs. And so in a meeting that we had with FIFA and the FIFA Foundation, and His Excellency Hassan Thawadi was very instrumental in kind of helping us with that conversation. We were made aware of the FIFA Foundation that was also launched around that time, and their goal is to create sustainable and social impact globally. And so if you will, the mission aligned, and the partnership we'll be looking at several different areas, but the one that will be, I think, coming into play very soon will be the Football for Development app that will be going globally around the world. And the idea is we have co-developed the modules on sustainability and inclusion for people with different abilities. And inshallah, in Qatar, it will be launched for the first quarter of 2022. And the idea is for that to go global next year. And with FIFA Foundation's might, the idea and our backing behind it is that everybody should have the right to be engaging in sports, and through football empower these youth to feel that they too have a voice and they are able to participate. So we're really, really excited about that.
Yeah, and so you should be. It's a wonderful program, I think. If I can come back to you, Your Excellency, you've spoken about this being a World Cup for the whole of the Arab world, but how will this be an Arab World Cup? What does it mean for the region, and what can be the economic and social impact of the tournament, both for Qatar and the wider Arab world?
I mean, in terms of what does it mean, for it to be an Arab World Cup, from, like we said early on, this is a tournament, this is a Middle Eastern tournament, it's an Arab tournament. So what we did early on was we worked very hard to engage with our neighbors, with our partners from the Arab world in terms of participating and delivering and assisting us in delivering the tournament. So we launched a number of initiatives. One of them was, for example, Jasur Institute, in which what we did was to train. So in essence, Jasur Institute is an institution that provides vocational training as well as workshops with industry experts, both in the hospitality as well as the event management industry, and all its facets and all the different areas within the industry. And the idea was to build the capability of people working in this industry to a level where, one, we can utilize them and for them in terms of delivering the World Cup and helping us and deliver the tournament, whether it's in terms of host country operations or within the tournament specifically itself. And then secondly, in increasing the capability or enhancing the capability of people working within this industry The ultimate aim and the long-term aim is for more qualified people to enter into this industry, which will in itself then create hopefully a virtuous circle of increasing the capabilities within the industry, developing the industry more. It becomes a genuine driver of the economy. I mean, I think it goes without saying that most of us in the Arab world invest quite extensively in the industry, and yet it doesn't move the needle, if you will, within the economy in terms of whether job creation or GVA or contribution to the GDP. We're hopeful that this World Cup will be, if you will, a stimulus in terms of training the human capacity, the human capabilities of individuals that will ultimately move on to creating this, or let's say, being the booster shot for the industry itself. Apart from that, of course, again, you know, with the focus being shifted on the Arab world, it will allow people to engage more, to experience and explore more the Arab world itself, which will in itself open up the Arab world more to the outside world. And when I'm saying that, I mean, you know, football fans that most likely normally would probably not visit this part of the world, but the World Cup being here would be their excuse and their motivator to come to this part of the world, and through that they would discover a lot of other aspects in the Arab world. I'll just very briefly touch on one last initiative that is regional as well, which is Challenge 22. So the idea behind Challenge 22 was we would reach out to entrepreneurs, we would reach out to innovators with a number of challenges, a number of issues that we might face that we would like resolved through via entrepreneurs and innovators. And the idea was then that, you know, whoever would provide us the best solution would be part of our procurement network, would be part of our service providers, and that potentially could end up becoming a launching pad for them, either to access regional markets or hopefully, you know, being more ambitious, also global markets as well.
Moving back to you, Mrs. Al Naimi, I'd like to get your views on this. Why do you think this will be an occasion the entire Arab world can share in?
I think, you know, what His Excellency Hassan said, it really is a lifetime opportunity. I remember the second it was announced, and, you know, where we all were seated when it was announced that Qatar will be hosting the World Cup. I think, you know, exactly to his point, having people who wouldn't typically come to this part of the world to actually come in and view and see the amazing work that is taking place, bringing in people from all walks and socioeconomic levels to be together. We know that sporting is a great equalizer. And this is a great opportunity for the Middle East, for the Arab region to kind of unite, to come together and bring people to hear and see everything that's happening. As Qatar Foundation, again, we've been mobilizing, you know, everything that we've been doing for the past 25 years, and we want to engage the hundreds of thousands of people who will be coming in to see and hear, understand a bit of what we have to offer. And we hope that, you know, they will engage in a meaningful way and leave Qatar having understood a bit about our culture, our history, and what we have to offer. I think it's going to be, you know, who knows when the next World Cup will be coming to our region. I think this is a really, really big time for us all to you know, leverage that whole ecosystem.
Remember, you can post your questions for the panelists on the Q&A section of this webinar, and we will take as many as we can at the end of this discussion. Mr. Infantino, to return to you for a moment. Qatar aims to stage the most sustainable World Cup. So in terms of sustainability, what do you feel will be learned from the 2022 tournament that acts as a benchmark and an inspiration for future World Cups? And with that in mind, what sporting innovations does FIFA intend to trial or introduce at the 2022 tournament?
Well, obviously, you know, when it comes to the sporting innovations, to start with that, we still have a bit of time ahead of us, but we are always at FIFA looking at how we can make football better from a sporting point of view. At the last World Cup, we introduced, after a test phase, the VAR, the video assistant refereeing, which now 4 years later is improving, is getting better, is getting faster, is getting more automated as well. So we are thinking about something that can help in terms of the offside of players, which is always one of these very, very delicate decisions that referees have to take, and looking at what we call a semi-automated decisions on offside. But this is still in development, and we'll come back to that. More importantly, I would say, if we speak about sustainability, because I think it's time, and it is for the first time, that the host country, Qatar, FIFA, and also, of course, all parties and entities involved and those responsible for delivering the World Cup have really developed and are implementing a joint sustainability strategy for this event. I mean, Hassan Al Thawadi knows it. He has been one of the main actors in elaborating this strategy, but there is a lot. There is a lot, and amongst the measures, there are important areas such as, obviously, workers' welfare, human rights, sustainable stadiums, the post-legacy usage, carbon emissions, and much more. And I think this is an important message which gets lost too often when we speak about many other topics, but it is important. We in FIFA, we in Qatar, we, all those part of the team organizing it, want really to embrace it, because we want to make football and the impact we have in the world better day by day, from one World Cup to the next, and the Qatar World Cup next year will really be a highlight in this respect, because we have the commitment as well of all the authorities, from His Highness the Emir to everyone in this country. Again, this is my job for the last 20 and a few more years, and this commitment by everyone for a real sustainable World Cup is something as well unique that will be seen from now until the World Cup, but much more importantly as well after the World Cup.
Fair enough. If I could just circle back to this partnership between FIFA Foundation and Qatar Foundation. Mr. Infantino, if I could get you to comment on that partnership specifically.
Well, it's a great partnership, and I'm as excited as Qatar Foundation. I mean, FIFA Foundation has been and is proud to collaborate in this area, because we believe very much, and for the FIFA Foundation, which is also a new foundation which was just created also together, let's not forget it, with Generation Amazing. We are all following the same purpose. The sustainability has been one element. When it comes to the foundation and the foundation work, education is crucial. And education is, let's face it, I mean, this is probably the right forum to speak about that. It's one of the greatest challenges for the future of all of us, of our world, because everything is linked with education. Health is linked with education. Environment is linked with education. Anything that has to do with the future of our children is linked with education, yet at the same time, education and educating our children is becoming more and more of a challenge, with all different activities that our children are undertaking. So we have elaborated in the FIFA Foundation, as it was mentioned, and this is one of our collaboration projects, a Football for Schools program. What does this mean? Well, we want to bring football to the schools, but not to teach boys and girls in schools how to play football, but to use football as a hook to teach to our boys and our girls lessons that are there for their life. You put a football on a table, you capture the attention of children. You put a book on the table, they look outside of the window to the sea or somewhere else, sadly, right? So we need to put the ball in order to bring them to the book. And when you speak about football, you can speak about anything. You can speak about respect, you can speak about discrimination, you can speak about inclusion, you can speak about health, you can speak about violence, and everything is somehow linked with football. You learn through football that you depend on your teammates, that you have to play as a team. You learn playing football as well, and that there are rules, that you have to respect these rules, and you cannot just kick somebody. And you learn it at your youngest age with this ball, and hopefully with our collaboration also with Qatar Foundation, with this Football for Schools project, in which many football legends will also participate and contribute. So basically, and maybe in a nutshell, in one sentence, the FIFA Foundation wants to support Qatar Foundation by using somehow the positive power of football at the service of society.
Okay, if I can get you to comment on one other partnership. FIFA, the Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy, and the World Health Organization, they have recently signed an agreement. And how is this tournament intended to leave the safest and healthiest legacy of any World Cup?
Yeah, that's also been a very important agreement that we have signed very recently. We are and have been collaborating with the WHO for quite some time, even actually before the WHO became, how should I say, famous because of the pandemic, if I can say it this way. I don't know how many normal people knew what WHO is today. I think every citizen in the world knows it. And we have started to collaborate with WHO around a year, between a year, 9 months before the pandemic. And actually the day in which, or the day after, in which the WHO declared that COVID is a pandemic, I was in the office of the Director General, Dr. Tedros, at 9 o'clock in the morning, and asked him, how can football help you in this respect? And that was probably the last thing he was expecting to see the FIFA president coming into his office a few hours after they said we are in a pandemic, in a global pandemic, and asking him how we can contribute. We have found a great partner there as well in Qatar, because obviously health has to be a top priority for all of us. And we can use and leverage again the power of football, the legendary players, to pass messages. If you have I don't know, Messi or Ronaldo or whoever who says to children that they have to wash their hands, they will wash their hands. If you have a Nobel Prize winner who says it, well, it doesn't have the same impact. That we need to pass this message of health for all, and we'll use the World Cup in order to promote healthy lives, which is, of course, not linked, or not specifically or only linked with COVID, but more generally, we are speaking about physical health, we are speaking about mental well-being, and all these topics will be part of the communication program from now until the World Cup. We'll use the World Cup because we need to again educate. We come back to education, our youth to live in a healthy way through physical activities, through appropriate diets, and so on and so forth. And this also gets a bit forgotten these days.
Thank you for that. Mrs. Al Naimi, I'd like to ask how Qatar Foundation is supporting efforts to make this a truly inclusive and accessible World Cup, a tournament for everyone.
Thank you for that question. I think, Mr. Infantino mentioned certain points about, it being working towards the most sustainable, and I think our big focus in supporting the Supreme Committee, aside from sustainability theme, is also inclusion for people with different abilities. As Qatar Foundation, that is a very, very key focus area for us. We've been working a lot in that field with things like, for example, we have different schools. So we have specialized schools for children with different abilities and learning difficulties. We have a specialized school for autism. As I mentioned already, we have our ability friendly program, again, in the sports area. And so that kind of theme is something that we focus on, and we try not to just talk the talk, but genuinely walk the walk as well. And we recognize that there's still a lot that we have to do, but taking each day as it comes and working on what we have. So looking at our city and making sure that the physical components are also accessible. And especially for any of our new assets or programs, again, keeping that in our mind. So when it came to the stadium, we actually looked at, how accessible is this? And one of the skyboxes was transformed into a sensory room. And that's something, we're very proud of, and again, work very closely with the SC, in a more of an advisory capacity, given that we have the expertise in-house. And we know that this is also going to be available in other stadiums in the country. And, I think it's something that I think will be the first of its kind for any, for future World Cups as well. But that showcases, I think, for the country, but others around the world, that this is a must. It's not a luxury anymore. People with different, who are either neurodiverse or have different abilities should also be able to come in and enjoy the game, enjoy our facilities. And so with our sensory havens in the stadiums, people are able to watch and engage in the game without necessarily having to feel like there's a sensory overload or, and we also have that with our concession stands, the seats and so forth. Taking it out of the stadiums, again, we've worked very closely with the Supreme Committee on the activation zone. So, you have around the Corniche different areas, there'll be huge activations that are being planned by their team. And we've worked with them to ensure that there are also sensory havens across the different activation zones in the country. Again, just to make sure that it's an inclusive experience, but also at a fan zone level. So making sure that there's an inclusive fan zone, so that, again, at every level, at every touch point, people with different abilities feel like they're also able to enjoy this, experience.
Your Excellency, we've experienced nearly 2 years of a global pandemic, and sport has been far from immune, with fans prevented from attending sporting events for a considerable period of time. Has this World Cup, do you think, taken on a greater meaning in terms of bringing people from around the world together?
I think for us, we've always put ourselves in that or aimed for a very lofty ambition, a very, let's say, big ambition of actually hosting the tournament. Like I said, the first Middle Eastern tournament, the first Arab World Tournament, which in itself has its own significance. There's no doubts, I think, after we experienced Tokyo without fans, this is the biggest global event that will occur where we are hopeful and aiming for it to be with fans. And not just local fans, but traveling fans. So there's no doubt that it will be the first opportunity, I believe, for the world to really celebrate coming together. And hopefully we'll be able to celebrate overcoming this pandemic, which we have all experienced together.
Mr. Infantino, to return to you for a moment, one of FIFA's goals is to spread the game of football. What does the first Middle East World Cup mean for these ambitions? And what do you hope will be the regional and global footballing legacy of this tournament?
Well, our vision at FIFA is really to make football truly global, because when we speak about football, we often say it's a global sport, which it is. It's the most beautiful sport, which obviously it is. But it's true that if you scratch a bit the surface, you realize that when it comes to the top of football, top professional football, it's very concentrated in really a few teams in Europe. And we need to give more opportunities and more access to the world in football. So in order to achieve this, we have to create more opportunities for people to play together, for people to come together, and the Arab world in this respect is quite crucial. 450 million people, a great passion for football. So I think it is absolutely fitting to have the World Cup right here for the first time in history. So I believe that the World Cup being such an amazing event, it has really the power to inspire young generations and to develop football at all different levels. So after the World Cup here in Qatar with 32 teams, we'll move to 48 national teams in 2026 for the next World Cup. 16 more teams, which means 16 additional countries who can join this biggest, not only sporting event, but really social event as well, all over the world. So bringing the FIFA World Cup here is definitely a great contribution to football development in this particular region, in the whole Arab world. Again, 450 million crazy people about football, crazy, of course. So I can really not wait to see this really special legacy that this tournament will leave here. And it will change. It will change the region in terms of the perception, as we were saying before, of the region to the world, of the world to the region, but also in terms of the football impact of this region towards the world.
And Your Excellency, what do you think the world will say about Qatar's World Cup after December 18, 2022, which is when the final is held? What will be its true legacy for Qatar, the region, and beyond?
What the world will say, well, most likely I won't hear it because I'll probably be asleep. So let's put it that way first. But what I would assume they would say, look, I mean, definitely, I think, as President Infantino mentioned, to start off with, from a sporting perspective, this will be the last tournament of its kind in terms of 32 teams. So I think that in itself is a legacy, and paving the way for a new legacy, which is 2026 and the 48-team tournament. What I'm hopeful for is it's the people, right? When you say the world, I'm not talking about media interests or so on. I'm talking about the average person, the fan. When they go back 2 or 3 years later, they can look back at this as possibly a family vacation that always will remain positive in their memories. At Christmas or Eid or Hanukkah or whenever it may be, somebody will pick up the phone and from this part of the world or a different part of the world and wish a Merry Christmas to somebody else, for example, or a Happy Eid to somebody from this part of the world, and these bonds to continue lasting beyond 2022, and through that, if you will, the human dialogue, the human conversation, the global conversation of humanity kind of expands in a positive way. That's where I think, in terms of, like I said, specific legacy, our stadiums, there's a story behind them. Each stadium will be reduced in terms of capacity. Some stadiums, for example, the Education City Stadium will be utilized within the Education City plans. One of our stadiums, the Ras Abu Aboud Stadium, the 974 Stadium, which was recently inaugurated, inspired by shipping containers, will be dismantled for the first of its kind, disassembled stadium, where the land itself will have further use for the country, and the components of the stadium will be utilized either as a stadium or other purposes as well. So there's all these, if we talk about sustainability, as President Infantino mentioned, there's a lot of different areas of sustainability and legacy that's being left. But ultimately, what at least what most of us as football fans would look towards would be, that positive memory, that positive relationship, that positive bond that you have. I mean, I think, it's no surprise, and I think, President Infantino probably agree with me, Russia 2018, a lot of stereotypes were washed away when people interacted with the Russian people, to the extent that people today, look at Russia as a tourist destination because the experience that they had was different to what they heard. And this is, I think, the biggest legacy that this part of the world, the first World Cup in the Middle East, will be able to offer. People will be able to engage with us, be able to experience our rich heritage, our rich culture, the cultural activities that are going to be run during this tournament that expresses and showcases the Arab world, not just Qatar, but the entire Arab world in itself. I think will have legacy for years to come.
Thank you so much. All right, I'd like to put some of the questions from the audience to our speakers. The first is a question from MS Teams. It's for His Excellency. A major concern of FIFA 2022 World Cup is effective public transportation, especially the distance between stadiums and metro stadiums, stadiums and metro stations. Can you tell us what's being done to address these questions?
Absolutely. I mean, overall, in terms of the components that make up our transportation strategy, there's obviously first the metro system. And again, just I'd like to highlight one point or misconception people have, that the metro system was planned for the World Cup. The metro system was actually designed prior. What happened was it was accelerated to fit certain components of the World Cup, and then we'll expand to further fit the needs of the country's overall development goals, and specifically to achieve two goals. One, reducing traffic on the roads by encouraging public transportation, and two, obviously, the carbon emissions elements related to that. Now, of course, the metro system in itself, there are some stations that don't reach up to the stadium. What we've done is created a bus transit system or shuttle bus system, so people would arrive in the metro system. For example, in the Dؤoub Stadium, it's about 3 kilometers from the stadium itself. So either you could walk, and we'll be creating the last mile in essence from the metro system to the stadium, or you can take the shuttle bus system as well. So this will cover the specific, if you will, the metro system and the stations that are not closely aligned to the stadium itself. The second element, of course, is the public transportation system. We've invested in upgrading our public transportation, public buses. Just to highlight a note, 30% of our buses are electric buses, 70% are run on diesel fuel, but the highest grade diesel fuel, with an idea of phasing them out over the next 5 years so that the majority of our public bus system will be electric buses. Of course, then there's the share riding system that's in place as well.
Very good. Thank you so much. A question for Mrs. Al Naimi. This is from Narayan on Teams. FIFA is going to position Qatar in the pole position, pun intended, I'm sure, for sporting events. What were some of the biggest challenges faced in getting the country to where we are now, and what do you think? What vision will be necessary to take Qatar forward to being a top-class world sporting destination?
I think when it comes to the challenges, I'll leave that part to His Excellency Hassan to elaborate on. But from where I stand as Qatar Foundation, I think there was a multitude of various different levels of challenges, whether it was the infrastructure, and I think he elaborately and adequately put that we're proud to say today, alhamdulillah, from an infrastructure perspective, everything is ready, and everything has been on time as per schedule. I think the other components are the social and other aspects, if you will, of hosting a sporting, and as President Infantino said, social event of this magnitude. And I think from what I've seen, at least from our perspective, and I'm sure it's been the same for the rest of the country, we've used the World Cup as a catalyst for pushing together or driving forward and jump-starting national movements. Whether, as I mentioned, it's things like accessibility. It was always part of our strategy. It was always something that we were looking at, but this has kind of pushed it to the forefront. Whether it's things like our the legacy components, like the volunteering program, showcasing what we do on our history, our identity. And I think a lot of that has already been thought out of, and we're well underway. Again, we have a year to see if there are any gaps, if there's anything that we need to kind of leverage on or build on. But I think that we're uniquely positioned already as a leader in being able to host sporting events. I think for any future events, as we saw with the Asian Games, we already have the infrastructure, the policies, the procedure, everything is kind of put into place. We're ready for future sporting events. We're positioned that way, and we're excited about the outcome. And I'm sure there'll be lots of lessons learned. But I'm I am confident that people will leave the World Cup celebrating Qatar's uniqueness of our Arab culture and our identity.
Okay, moving along to a question for Mr. Infantino from LinkedIn. Inclusivity is key to sports in general and football in particular. How is FIFA focusing on this pivotal element? Sir, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, okay,
Great.
Sorry. Yeah, inclusivity is obviously crucial for FIFA. I mean, the simple fact that FIFA is an association of 211 member countries, member associations as we call them, shows that for us, everyone is equal, because all these 211 countries which form FIFA, don't forget, it's more than the number of members of the United Nations. So all these countries that form FIFA are integral part of FIFA. Each of these countries has one vote, and each of these countries has also one voice. And this is actually something that is also maybe a little bit new for FIFA. It's part of our new way of including the entire world, of precisely not only focusing on where football is the biggest business, maybe, but on trying to involve everyone. I was in Sri Lanka 3 days ago, and the Sri Lankan Football Association had organized a small tournament with 4 national teams, 4 countries, and I attended the final of this tournament amongst other duties there. And at the final in Colombo, Sri Lanka played Seychelles, and you had 10,000 people in the stadium. It was a great atmosphere, many children, many women, and most importantly, a lot of emotion. And this is exactly what we are here for. We are here to try to give emotions, and everyone has emotions all over the world. Whatever political system, legal system, economic system you have, you all have, everyone has emotions. And our duty is to try to bring everyone together by developing, of course, football all over the world, by increasing the number of participants, by increasing the number of competitions, by increasing the solidarity investments that we are making all over the world, making sure that the money goes into football, by fostering development of women's football, by engaging in social activities, by, of course, fighting against any sort of discrimination or racism with initiatives, with education, and finally by remembering and reminding everyone all the time that we are about the world, and we all live in the same world, and we need to learn to live together. And that's why I come back to the World Cup here in Qatar, because it will be unique in the sense that you will have the entire world, not only the 32 countries participating, but all those watching who will come all in the same place, and they will stay here, and they will learn to interact with each other, to discuss with each other. Even if you don't speak the same language, you have this magic ball which facilitates the discussion. And this helps greatly, I think, in creating a common understanding. So it's our day-to-day work to make sure that we include everyone in our activities, and for this reason, initiatives also such as the one that we are all attending here are crucial.
So I'm going to stick with LinkedIn for a moment. This question is for Your Excellency. There have been many concerns raised about adequate accommodation in Qatar during the World Cup. What can fans expect in 2022?
In relation to accommodation, again, a number of different components. It's important to highlight first our approach. We didn't want to impose unnecessary capacity in the hotel industry, the hospitality industry specifically, just to address the World Cup and then to remain unutilized after that. So what we did was we worked very closely with the tourism authorities to look at what the natural growth natural growth rate is in relation to hotel rooms over the coming years and what will be required after the tournament, and then to complement that or supplement that with a number of different initiatives. So the first is we signed up with a company, MSC, a global cruise ship as well as cargo shipping company, to provide us with cruise ships during the tournament. So that will be utilized during the tournament, and of course these cruise ships then will go back. But in doing that and ensuring that we have about 6,000 rooms from the cruise ships, what we wanted to do as well is ensure there's a legacy behind it. So we insisted that the agreement also encompasses, one, ensuring that Qatar is a destination in terms of home boarding for their cruise business in the region. And the second part is also to include their cargo shipping industry as well, so that Hamad International Port becomes a hub to cater for their cargo business as well. So to actually feed into the logistics part of the industry for the state of Qatar as well as for the tourism part as well. So that's in relation to the floating hotels, if you will. Then there's of course the third one, which forms the bulk of it, which we partnered up with the with the government in terms of utilizing the real estate that is available within the country. So we're talking about apartments, hotel apartments, compounds, and so on that range from 3-star, 4-star, 5-star quality accommodation for the entire for the period of the tournament, and then of course the government will be utilizing that for its uses beyond that. In terms of ensuring that the services provided within these facilities are of high quality, we signed up with Accor, an international leading brand in terms of hotels, to provide the services in there. We just signed that recently as well. And they'll be offering, so they'll be ensuring that the services that come along with these accommodations are of a high quality. So in essence, affordable housing, available housing, high quality services.
Excellent, thank you so much. I wish we could get to more questions, but I'm afraid our time has run out. Your Excellency, Mr. Infantino, Mrs. Al Naimi, I'd like to thank you all the panelists who have made us more excited about next year's World Cup. Thank you for sharing some great insight, not just into the tournament, but also about what will be the tournament's legacy. On behalf of Qatar Foundation, thank you to FIFA and the Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy for making this one-year World Cup countdown edition of the Education City Speaker Series possible. And finally, thank you to everyone joining us from Qatar and around the world. Remember, you can rewatch this afternoon's event on Qatar Foundation's YouTube channel. And if this has increased your appetite for more of the Education City Speaker Series, please keep checking qf.org.qa/ECSS for details about future editions. Again, thank you all so much. Stay safe and be well.